I think so.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Awesome. Okay, I am also going to, I'm gonna put the spotlight on you for the recording, so everyone can see your
Oh
beautiful face,
gosh.
because you're
Lordy,
really
thanks.
the star today. So good to have you on. I'm so excited to get to meet with you today, and
Thanks for
I
having
know
me.
I was thinking about it the other day. It's been about a year since you interviewed me.
Was that a
Um,
year ago?
it was a year ago. Isn't that crazy?
Time is
I,
flying.
I know. I was thinking, I was like, I think Cheryl interviewed me. When was that? And then I was looking, I was like, holy cow, that was a year ago.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I'm excited to introduce you to our people today. We're talking with Cheryl, who is you're from New York. You live in Texas now. You
I
moved to
did.
Texas to go to work for your dream job, which you're going to talk about, but you're also managing entrepreneurship. And so I thought it would be really fun for our people to hear more about that. So why
Sure.
don't you tell us about your company? Why don't you start with that, and
Yeah.
anything else that you want to share with us?
Sure.
Yes.
So, hi everyone. My name is Cheryl. I am an owner and a co-founder of Empower to Profit, really where we obsess about helping our clients put more of their revenue into their personal account. It's not something I could just drop when I was offered this dream job. It's really just like at the core of my heart. So many of us work so hard for this entrepreneurship dream. I just want you to put more of that revenue into your personal account. So that's how our business was born. And if we rewind a little bit, even while I was building this business, I worked at an executive level for New York State. I was an audit director for one of the state agencies, and I really climbed the ranks fast. But as most of us in corporate, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I think part of me hated it because I just climbed that ladder really quickly, and I had like the dream job. Faster than most. So I was like, what's next? And then I landed this position with a vastly growing e-commerce brand here in Texas. And the money was right. And they moved my family out here. So here I am living that dual. I have a full-time position serving as an intrapreneur for Buff Bunny Collections, which is a e-commerce athletic apparel company, as well as running a multi-six-figure business in accounting and finance, which is like my obsession.
Yes. And I was so excited. I remember when you were moving, I knew you were taking a job, and I was very skeptical about it. I was like, what? Why is she taking a job? What's going on? And then when you told me it was Buff Bunny, I was like, I see. I understand now. Because Buff Bunny is actually one of my favorite influencers on YouTube. I had been actually I had watched her YouTube channel back in, like, I want to say it was probably around like 2009, 2010. I started watching her videos. And so like she was recording in her living room, like the quality was absolutely terrible. And now they have a whole conglomerate. So really cool that you have an opportunity with them. So I have a couple questions for you, and I'm sure it's a lot of the same questions other people have that are here today, really around how do you do it all, right? So for my people who are maybe still working a job, and maybe it's not their dream job, right? Maybe they're not in their dream job, but they're trying to manage growing their business plus work in a career. Maybe they need that money right now. What are some of your best tips for my guys and gals on managing all of the things?
Sure. So I'm not going to lie and pretend it's not a lot. I mean, I manage a multi-million dollar business. I won't get into the figures because they're not mine to share, but it's very successful. And manage a team as well as our own business. And I have a family and kids. So the first thing is I don't do it all. I don't. I have a husband who does all of our grocery shopping, does all of our cooking. I wish he cleaned better, but at the face, like I do not do it all. I get help. I have an amazing team, both within my business as well as in Buff Bunny. So the key is delegation, being willing to ask for help, be willing to admit when you need it, but also being willing to get your hands dirty. So yesterday, it's not all glamorous, and I don't want to like sit here and pretend it is. Yesterday, I worked from 4 in the morning until I didn't get home till 8 p.m. 4 in the morning till 8 p.m. Now, is every day like that? No, absolutely not. That's not sustainable. But I don't want to sit here and pretend that I work 3 to 5 hours a week. That's just not true. But I also have a crystal clear vision on what like my dream life looks like. And I'm going to be real. My dream life costs money. And for me to have those funds, I need to work and do the work sometimes. And I want it now, not in 5 years. So I'm like fast tracking the funds rather than slow growth. And I think whatever plan you want, that's okay. But create the steps of what you're willing to do and be honest with yourself. I'm honest with myself. I'm willing to sleep a few hours so I can get it done. I'm willing to ask and demand for help and not do it all. I'm willing to send my kids to daycare. That's my choice. It doesn't have to be anyone else's, but just be honest with what you want and what it takes to get there. I think it's Tom Bilyeu, however you say his last name. He has a quote. It's like, no, can I swear?
Yeah.
No bullshit. What does it take to get there? So like no bullshit to get to my dream life, which I'm going to be frank, like I'm living an amazing life. Like it's really cool. It's not like the dream, but no bullshit to get there. It took moving to Texas, building up our bank account, growing the business. And some mornings I get up at 4 a.m.
Yeah. And you're willing to do that. And I think what is really important about this conversation is you're willing to do that. And you said something, it's because you're so crystal clear on what you want. Right. And so that brings me back to like the question, like what motivates you to wake up at 4 in the morning? And I know that part of that has to do with being so crystal clear on what you want. So for those of you who are tuning in and watching, the biggest thing I want to share with you is you're not going to be motivated and inspired to wake up at 4 in the morning or get through the hard days, the really busy days, the days that suck, if you're not inspired by what's to come and having a clear vision on exactly what you want out of your life, and knowing even and being okay with what Cheryl said is the life that she has dreamed up costs money, right? And that's okay. So as far as like delegating, talk to me about your team, talk to me about delegating. I think that that's an area where a lot of CEOs in the financial space, they are the brains, right? They bring that to the table. They're like, I have all of these skills, and you worked in auditing for New York State. So it's like, you're going to bring all of these skills to the table, but where can you and where do you delegate? Like, what's your advice for those of you for all of us who have a lot of it upstairs, but how do we delegate? What sort of things do you delegate?
There's a lot I delegate, whether it's at home or in the office. And to be honest, to be where I'm at and to be where I'm going, you can't get there without delegating. If I wanted to do it all, we would not be in this position. If I wanted to be the Pinterest mom who cooks a fancy meal as well as run this multi-million-dollar company and my own multi-six-figure company, I could not do all that on my own shoulders. So I don't even pretend. So there's simple things, whether it's through my home or at work. So let's jump into work. I have an amazing team, and I tell them the vision, the goal, the objective, what I expect. And then I jump in when we're not on path to hit that goal, vision, or objective, right? And I monitor that through a lot of systems. I know like everyone throws up systems, but it's until you start using them and then like religiously following up on them that they'll change your life. So Buff Bunny Collections is run on a system. We have a ClickUp, and that was the first thing I empowered. I'm not going to come in here and pretend I do it all. I do not. I am not a creative. If you've ever looked at their Instagram, they're a very creative brand. I'm an accountant. By trade. In our own business, yes, ClickUp is absolutely amazing. It's a godsend. In our own business, I have the dream business partner. And quite frankly, my business didn't start as a partnership, but I could not fathom being where I am without being in a partnership. And that's like a whole different conversation we could have, which is very interesting. But she does one part of the business, I do another. We have a team who helps. And as long as you're crystal clear on the objectives, and then you check in to see when you're veering off the path and you're not close to the objectives, you'll achieve them. And also letting go of some things. We all have our certain way of doing things, and it's okay sometimes to get to the end result slightly different. It's okay if the path is slightly different, as long as you get to the same result, and being okay with that. For instance, we just moved a warehouse. Like, whoever thought I'd be moving a warehouse? And the way I was doing it and my plan was slightly different than my operations manager. So as long as we were constant communication and I didn't feel the need to micromanage her, because then I'm not really utilizing her skills or mine, and just checked in and made sure we were still on target to meet the goals, it worked out. Slightly different, it's okay. Release control a little bit, but don't release control of the objective.
Yes. So the objective and the result that you're looking for is non-negotiable. The pathway and the journey to getting there, sometimes we have to release control of that, right? And it's so funny because as you were saying that out loud, I was thinking about, like, for all my ladies, all my women who have had children or considering having children, that's one of the big things that I had to really work on, not with my first child, but because of the birth with my first child, I had to work on with my second child, like releasing the whole, like the pathway to having the baby. Like, as long as the baby was here, because birth experiences are all different, and you think it's going to go one way and it maybe goes a different way, and you're going to set yourself up for disappointment, or being unhappy with the way the experience goes. And the same thing with working with teams. Like, so often my team will get something done, and yeah, sure, sometimes I find out later how they got it done, and I'm like, that's what you guys did? Like, what? Oh my gosh, you could have had that done in 5 minutes. Here, let me show you. Right. And so there's always opportunities to teach them different skills, or I'm an Excel master. Like, I'm an Excel guru. That is my space, right? Where my team, they've never lived in Excel. I built my entire career using Excel, where they haven't done that. So when I'm like, no, you just need a pivot table here, and you could do this, or you could sort through this. They're like, oh, we were doing that manually. I'm like, oh my Lord. Right. So I'm teaching them new skills. It's an opportunity for all of us to learn. But I don't micromanage it. I'm just like, they got to the result. That's great, right? Here's how you can do it better next time, potentially. But honestly, I'm just glad we got to the result, right? I also love what you said about like delegating things out, and like demanding for that help, right? So often we think that we don't have help, or that there isn't someone to help you. And a really great example of that for me today is my husband actually still works full time. He's not willing to give up his career, and that's fine with me. But today was a day that I had a lot on my plate, and I was feeling very overwhelmed. And so I'm here today because I texted him this morning and I was like, is there any way you could leave work? Like, I'm always the one that leaves work, right? I'm always the one that reschedules my calendar when my kids are sick. I have a sick kid at home. And I was like, and he's like, you never ask. And so it must be something that's really going on. And I was like, I just have so much on my plate. I'm overwhelmed. I've been home with the kids. My last son was sick 2 weeks ago. Then I was on vacation with them. And now my other son is sick. And I'm like, I've been doing it all with the kids for the last 3 weeks. They haven't been in school for 3 weeks because of sickness and traveling. And I'm like, I need to go. I need to get out of here. Right. Ooh, we got people trying to get in. So asking for that help and not being afraid to ask for help, whether it's from a partner, or somebody in your business, and being vulnerable. I think is another part of that. And you probably have some examples of that too. Like when you're feeling underwater, just like, I need somebody to take this off my plate so I don't even have to think about it. Um, and the other thing I want to add to is you have a business partner, right? Who's like your number two. Whether you guys, whether you're in business with a business partner or not, you will need a number two.
Oh, for sure.
Point, you need a number two, right? And so not in the legal sense is Allie a business partner at this point, but she is my number two. Like no matter what, if something happens to me and I can't do it, I know she can run my company, right? She can run this whole ship. She would probably even be willing to run the Moneymaker Mastermind, like all the meetings. She'd do this live, like she would be able to do it. So as you're growing your business, it's something to think about, like who's going to be the number two for you. And they have
I call
to
it an intrapreneur.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they don't, and in my world, I'm the intrapreneur to Buff Bunny. Like I literally run the company, make her vision come to reality. An intrapreneur is key. And before Katrina and I became business partners, she was my intrapreneur. Like an intrapreneur is Allie to you. Like it's literally a godsend. And as you grow, build someone into that role.
Yes. Yeah. That's actually a great question. And so why don't you talk about that? What did that look like for you? Because I think so often we have a really hard time imagining that we're going to have somebody for our newer business owners that maybe are on and they're doing it all on their own. What did it look like for you? I know a lot of people know Allie and I's story about how she started with me and literally paying her like $50 to do a job here and there, right? What's your story with you said Katrina?
Yes, with Katrina. So Katrina was coming up just in the bookkeeping world and she would just keep taking on more and more and more. I've always had an executive level position and grew my business I'm just gonna be honest, it just exploded more than I ever expected. It was supposed to make $1,000 a month. So as we continued, it just grew and grew and grew. But I was also building a momentum that she wanted to be a part of. Right? I mean, let's be honest, you can take an accounting job, a bookkeeping job anywhere. And to be quite frank, that could pay her more than I could pay her or offer her more benefits. But I was building a movement and I was so obsessed with our results that she was like, yep, I want to be a part of this. So then when I needed a business partner or I had to figure it out, she was like the clear choice. And so often she'd be like, hey, I'll do that. Don't worry about it. Or like, hey, we can make this better if we do X, Y, and Z. And she would bring a lot of like thought leadership and like higher level conversations into the business model. So it just naturally progressed. But it didn't start because I treated her like an hourly employee or a contract employee. It really grew because I brought her behind the scenes a little bit more. I gave her more than just like a task to do. I gave her some of that like excitement and involvement in the growth and the trajectory we were doing. So she wanted to be a part of it. So it's just really natural in our case.
Yeah. And so what are your goals? What are your goals? What's your dream? Tell us about that.
My dream. So if you were to rewind, like my first degree, I have a master's in accounting, but my first degree is in outdoor education. I love to be outside. I love to hike, the whole 9 yards. So I will have another lake house, big water view, and my kids will be outside hiking and spending more time outdoors. So that's like the big dream goal is to have another lake house. We had one in New York, and we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
And then I also want like yurts and tree houses and I want to rent those out, but that's a different story.
Oh, that sounds fun. It's so funny. You and I have so many similarities around like our businesses just blowing up. Like my plan was to make like, I wanted to make $1,300. That was my first goal. Like if I could make $1,300 per month, I'd be able to pay all the bills and buy groceries. I'm really glad at this point that I didn't rely on that 1,300 because that would not even be able to pay for groceries in 2022. So it was back then 1,300 was going to do the job. Today it does not. But just blowing up. And then also I love the outdoors and I'm always talking to my husband about buying another business. And so I'm always looking in like campgrounds, like or
Stop it.
land. Yeah, yeah, that's like the thing I want to do, but it's one of the most expensive businesses to acquire because you're buying land plus the business. So it's not a cheap business to acquire. So I got to get some more capital moving here.
Oh my gosh,
But
we have to have a side conversation. So many thoughts. So many
yeah,
thoughts.
yeah, we should. So, amazing. Now, as far as like your kids, I think being a mom, this is one of the other, and if anyone has any other questions, feel free to add them in, drop them in here. Um, because I'm running out, but I know I had a couple that I wanted to touch on, but around being a parent, around being a mom, and I think a lot of women that start their businesses, we start our businesses initially to be home with our kids more and have more flexibility. But I think over time, what happens is we love our businesses and we find ourselves working more and pulling away. Did you have mom guilt around that? And if so, like, how did you overcome it? And if you didn't ever have it and you're like, no, never had it, tell us about that too.
Yeah. So when we had children, like going to work was never an option. My kids have always been in daycare. I'm not ashamed to admit it. And I'm proud that I could afford that bill, to be honest. I just wanted my kids to have the opportunity. All money is opportunities to do things and to not struggle. I grew up where money was an issue, and I just didn't want that for my kids. In order for my children to have the standard that I want for them, and like no judgment what someone wants for their kids or whatever.
Yeah.
It took a two working family household, and I always had a little competitive edge with my husband. He's an engineer for GE. I was like, I'm gonna make more money than you one day. He's like, okay, like I'm waiting. Spoiler alert, I do. It took a while though. So I had no shame that my children go to daycare, but when they come home, like we can do all the things. Like we just took a last minute vacation to a lake. And as you know, a last minute vacation is no less than $1,000 for a weekend.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to be able to give them, is those opportunities and those experiences. But I did have to let go of some things. Like I'm not a PTA mom. I tried in the beginning and I just couldn't manage it all. It was actually Rachel Hollis who was like, if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. I hated PTA. Like it's just not a good time for me. But being able to take my kids to the lake or having those experiences, I'm like here for it. Let's do that.
Yeah.
I'm not like, I would love to say like, oh, I'm a Pinterest mom. Like that would be a dream, but my time doesn't allow for that.
Yeah.
And I have no shame because I'm also raising kids who know like if you want something, you go and you work for it. If you want your new shoes or your new this, like you have to work for it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny that you say that because same, I will never forget Rachel Hollis talking. It must have been in her book, Girl Wash Your Face, but she was talking about how she hated to go volunteer for things at the school, but she will support it with money. I'm
Amen.
in that boat. And I'm like, yes, I will give you the money to do it, but I don't have the time, right? So let me know what you want me to fund and I'll do that, but I am not going to spend the time because my time is too valuable right now.
And
But
like it's not where I want to spend my time. Right. Like
right.
I would rather spend my time like with my two kids, not with 30 kids or with 30 moms talking about the things we should be doing. Right.
Yeah.
Because we all have
Yep.
the same amount of time, and it's where do you want to spend it? I would so much rather spend it in your profit plan. I know, geek,
Yeah.
but like it's just true.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same way. I'm definitely not I call myself an Amazon mom. Although once in a while I made a really cool hat for the Easter hat parade. I can get crafty here and there, but for the most part, and you know what? I made that hat, and you could probably totally relate to this. I made that hat while I was on calls standing in my kitchen. Like I was crafting it and putting it together. This whole Minecraft hat. I'll have to share a picture of it on my stories or something to show everybody. But it was one cool hat, so. But I did it while I was on calls and while I was working at the same time, hot gluing stuff to this Easter
I
hat.
love it. Multitask. Do the things that are important to you. And what's important to you doesn't have to be important to someone else. I have no shame in my game that I worked from 4 a.m. till 8 p.m. yesterday. My husband had to handle the kids. No shame. That's me though. You do what,
Yeah.
like what's good for you. And that's like what I would project. Like if you want to be the stay-at-home mom and work 5 hours a week, your business growth may be different, but zero shame in that. Like just own who you are.
Yep. And I think that's a really good point to make. Is I think so often we focus on the outcome of what we think will make us happy. And so it's like we look to, once I get here, I'll be happy, right? Once I do this, I'll be happy. But I think what's most important, and entrepreneurs seem to forget this, is what's going to make you happy is what you're doing every day right now, right? You quit your corporate job, so you weren't in a position where you were unhappy every day. So don't do that same thing to yourself. Like if for you working 12-hour days, if you love what you're doing and you want to reach a certain outcome at a certain time frame and you're willing to do whatever it is, and as long as you're happy doing it, it does not have to look the same as somebody else. I'm someone who I have more of a mix. Like I like to be with my kids a little more. So I only really work 3 days per week right now in the summer, but in the winter, like I'm busting my butt. I'm working every single day, right? But in the summer, also, Cheryl knows I'm from New York, so summers for us are like
enjoy it. Oh, I miss
have
it.
to enjoy it. I get like a full 90 days of sunshine here in New York, so it's like I'm outside. I want to do the things I want to do because I know in the winter I'm going to be inside anyways. So
absolutely, no, you got to do you. It's so easy in this online world just to look at everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what if you just honed in on like what you wanted to do and what would get you there?
And so one of my last questions for you before I let you go here is, what do you think contributed to your growth in your business? I'm sure everyone wants to know that. You have a successful business, successful team. You guys are helping so many different people with their profitability. What are 3 things that you think contributed to your success so far?
I think the biggest thing is I just didn't stop. Like whether I had like no clients, 1 client, whether I was talking to nobody on Facebook, but I still showed up. I just didn't stop. And I still just don't stop. So I think that's like the most important thing. So often people quit because they're not getting like the satisfaction. Just don't stop. If it's important to you, just don't stop. It will work. The second thing that really contributed to our growth is I was willing to hear no, whether it's in my business or my professional corporate career outside of my business. I put myself out there so many times, and that's honestly how I grew in New York State really quick. I was willing to hear no and then try again. No, and then try again. Get some tough skin. I heard no way more than I heard yes, but because I heard a couple of yeses, the pocketbook kept increasing. And then 3, like, don't be narrow-minded. Like there's people who will say things that sound different, or that's really what I have to do. But like emulate those you wish to have success. And it kind of piggybacks on a thing we talked about a year ago is I worked with a person who I think was one of your first big success stories, Becky, and that's how I heard about you. And I was like, she paid, I don't know, maybe at the time it was like $5,000-$6,000 for, like, who does that? But because of listening and being willing to be in the room and like to hear a different conversation than like corporate America and to emulate it, we're successful.
Yeah, that's crazy. So that's so funny. I want to say I was charging $1,000 a month, and it was a 5-month commitment, so $5,000. We definitely charge a lot more than that today.
But I'm glad, because you change freaking lives and people don't pay you enough.
Yeah,
I can commit.
I think right now they pay us enough, but we over deliver on what they're paying. But that's the whole goal, right? That's the plan. Absolutely. Is they feel like they're getting more than what they're paying for. So
follow the program. Like just follow the program. So often we want to like make it our own. Don't. Just follow the program. It works.
Yeah. And I love that you you used a little bit of networking, getting out into your community. Were you in BNI as well?
I was not in BNI, no.
No.
But I did use local Craigslist brought me a lot of really high, powerful clients. And then I mastered those relationships. One of the things I'm most proud of in our firm is people don't leave us.
Yeah.
They just don't leave. Whether their rates go up or not until they sell their business, they just don't leave. So we really work on community and conversations and like being more than just like an accountant.
Yeah, relationships, right? And then so Facebook was your social media platform that you focused on, and just show up, right? Like it's imperfect, just keep showing up. So a little mix of those. And I love what you just said, because I'm actually planning an entire content segment on this. So sneak peek into next week. It might not be next week. I think we have something else planned for next week, but maybe the week after. I'm going to be doing a training about this, and it is about the power of relationships and how the relationship, once somebody becomes your client, is more important than the relationship before they become your client. Amen. Right? And so often I see in this industry, in the accounting, the finance industry, it's like, oh, they signed the engagement letter, so now I have their money and now they're in, and that's it. And it's like, you should talk to those people more now that they've signed that contract than before, right? But we lose sight of that. We lose sight of that relationship. And that was the same for me. I think so many people stayed in my business. I literally was like, they saw me moving on to this coaching space, and I was like, you guys, I gotta let you go. Like, I'm pushing you out the door. You gotta find somebody else. And it was because I had such strong relationships with them that they were along for the ride with whatever I was doing. Right. So, love that. So any last words for our people that, you know, are working on growing their businesses? They haven't landed that dream job, or they haven't landed that dream, those dream clients yet. What's your last piece of advice for them today?
Just don't stop, and you don't know when it's going to show up. Texas was not on my radar, but here we are.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl. It was awesome to connect with you again today, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you again soon. And I'll be in Austin on the 28th. So we're going to connect.
Yeah, we definitely have to. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye, guys.